start off with the Bhagavad Gita today. And before we start, I have a little, we'll start off with a little meditation and then we'll get on with this. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'd like you to say with me the word Om, and Om is said as A, U, Ma. Aum. So you say it like this. Take a deep breath. Aum. The last sound Ma is said with the mouth closed. So it's Aum. So let's do it together. All right. So we begin with the Bhagavad Gita today, and today we're doing chapter 9. Before we start, I'd like to put on something I just created for this program, so enjoy this little video. That is the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. So welcome everybody, and let's get started. So chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita is a fascinating chapter because here Krishna is going into describing who he is, what is the nature of the divine, and what are the benefits of being able to understand this. Let's read what he's got to say here. So he's talking to Arjun on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and this is 3000 BC, so 5000 years ago. And here Krishna is saying to Arjun, those who are not deluded, the great souls. It's a very interesting term there, those who are not deluded. Mahatmanam tumam partha, daivim prakritim ashritaha. What is a person who is not deluded? In what Krishna has been talking about earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, we are all deluded. We are all deluded by desire and hate, by the dualities of desire and hate. Ichha dvesha samudena dvanda mohena bharata. The delusion, the primary delusion of this world is this one word, duality. This is a world of duality where there are things we like and there are things we dislike. There are things that we think are good and there are things that we think are bad. So therein comes the duality. We're constantly, it's not that the world is good or bad. The world is what it is. It is our minds that are constantly sorting out the world into these dualistic ideas of good and bad, right and wrong, saint and sinner, etc., etc. And then most of human social behavior, religion, everything has been designed around the way of the mind. But the way of spirituality is to become free of the mind, to become free of that dualistic thinking. And such a person who has become free of that, Krishna is referring to here as a person who is not deluded. Such a person is a great soul, Mahatma. Mahatma means, Maha means great and Atma means soul. Mahatma. Gandhi was called Mahatma Gandhi for that reason. They called him the Mahatma, Mahatma, great soul. Some people now disagree with that. They don't like they disagree with his policies and his politics and everything else, and they think, no, he's not a Mahatma, but whatever. I'm not going to get into that discussion here. But what is important is to understand what are the signs, the laksha of a great soul. And so that's what Krishna is talking about here, that those who are not deluded, who are under the protection of the divine nature, so they are under the protection of the divine nature. So everybody else is not. Is that right? In fact, we're not. We're up to our own devices. We're here in the world, exercising our free will, doing whatever the heck we want, creating whatever chaos we like, following the rules of society or not following them, agreeing with what is good for others or not agreeing. We have free will, and so we're doing whatever we want. But the Mahatma, the great soul, steps away from the duality. Like you'll see these constant dualities. There is, let's say, there are political parties. You're either part of the Democrats or the Republicans. You are part of this president or that president or that leader. You're part of the vaccination group or the anti-vax group. There's constantly this thing going on. But the Mahatma is someone who steps outside of that paradigm of duality. Let's take this very simple example that I brought up. It's been around so much, so I thought it's a good time to bring it up. People arguing over whether it's good to take a vaccine or not good to take a vaccine. The interesting part is that most people, when they go to one point of view, do not usually look at the other point of view. They will be driven by their own biases. So, for example, everybody on the other camp is a bunch of morons, a bunch of idiots, and only only my group knows the truth of what is right. And so we get influenced by each other. And our wonderful setups on Facebook and YouTube are very much designed to create this echo chamber. But really, the truth is never looked at like that. The truth is something where you're able to look objectively at something. You're able to, instead of getting caught up in this point of view or that point of view, you're able to see multiple sides of a situation. And then you're able to make a decision about what is best for you, which is what most people aren't doing in today's time. They're becoming very emotional, very much driven by what their friends say and what the media, what their Facebook groups say, and so on. But I think that's where it all becomes really, really crazy. So I like what Susan says here. She says, most people are highly influenced by emotional response. We're in chapter 9, text number 13. I like that, Susan. Thank you so much for sharing that. It is so very true. Most people are driven by emotional responses, not logical responses, not sensible responses, not things that actually work, but emotions. And unfortunately, a lot of people take advantage of other people's emotions. I mean, advertisers have been doing it for ages. Politicians have been doing it for ages. Religious people have been doing it for ages. Religious people would tell us, why do they think they tell us that you'll go to hell and burn forever? Not because it makes sense. As far as the sense of that is concerned, it's quite ridiculous that God, the Father of all beings, would take his own children and send them to hell to burn forever. Does that make any sense to anybody? I mean, no, but emotionally, it drives emotion, it drives fear, it drives a sense of, I better do the right thing, otherwise I'm going to go to hell. That emotion is what they're preying on. The emotion that advertisers prey on is very similar, that if you don't, there's this problem and we have the solution to it. We will fix your problem for you. So we've been having this going on for ages. Politicians have been doing it for the longest time. The Mahatma is someone who steps outside of that paradigm, is not influenced by anyone's opinion, is not caught up by what people think or do not think, believe or do not believe. To believe in itself is part of the problem. As it is, we are believers of our own mind. We believe what our mind tells us, and it's a tragedy, because our mind is never necessarily the best source of truth or information. So Susan writes, media is used for brainwashing. Highly conditioned humans are not really exercising free will. Yes. How much of free will we're really exercising remains to be seen. I think that most people think they are free, but in fact they're not. I would go so far as to say that none of us is really free and that we don't know what freedom is. Freedom begins by being free of your mind. It means being free of your thoughts, being free of being affected by the situations around you, or what people say, or what people think, or what you think, or what you believe. Start stripping all that away, pull all that out of your mind, and what will remain will be like clear water where you can see things as they are. So, if you really want to understand things as they are, then Krishna is inviting you on this path to become a person who is no longer deluded and to come under the protection of the divine nature. So there is the material nature and there is the divine nature. The material nature is dualistic. The divine nature is non-dualistic, right? Therefore, you hear of terms like oneness. You hear of terms as that talk about non-duality. Non-duality is the nature of is the divine nature. There is neither good nor bad, neither right nor wrong. You are neither saint nor sinner. Krishna is emphasizing this point again and again. The person who is enlightened, awakened, sees everything, whether that's a stone or a piece of gold, as the same, sees a saint and a sinner as the same, does not differentiate between one and the other. That is the sign of awakening. The problem today is that because people don't read books like the Bhagavad Gita, they don't have a standard as to what to expect or what to look for in a highly evolved being. So just because somebody speaks well or has a lot of facts and information that they can roll out at the tip of their tongue, that person is then considered to be very knowledgeable, and knowledge is mistaken for wisdom. It's not. Knowledge is not wisdom. Knowledge is just information. Information, when it is lived and applied, becomes wisdom. There are different words. There's gyan in Sanskrit, which is knowledge, and then there is vigyan. Vigyan is realized knowledge. A person can be a guru, as a teacher, or an acharya. An acharya is a person who teaches by their example. In other words, they live the knowledge that they are teaching. They are not just teaching some information, but they're actually living it. They've gone through the process and now they can share with you what it takes to be, what they can recognize what it takes to be there, and they can share with you the intricacies of what it takes to get there. Right? Make sense? All right. Lovely inputs coming in from Susan. If you'd feel like you'd like to you want to share something, just raise your hand and I'll bring you in on the screen so you can share your views if you'd like to speak up. You're perfectly welcome to do that. Krishna continues. So the great souls who are not deluded are fully engaged in serving God in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Now I'm going to turn to the Sanskrit over here just to give you a little better idea of what Krishna is saying. Is it bhajanti ananya manaso? Bhaja means to worship. Okay, bhajanti ananya manaso, that with their mind undeviated they worship the Supreme. Gyatva bhutadim avyayam. So it's really interesting that they know that the supreme cause of all creation is Krishna. And then he continues here, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. The words he uses, satatam kirtayanto mam. Kirtan is the chanting of the names of God, like when you do a mantra and you sing it, particularly if you sing it, right? Kirtan. Satatam means always, always engaged in kirtan. Satatam kirtayanto mam. Mam means me, the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita, me, Krishna, right? So these people are always engaged in chanting about me, Krishna. Yatantas cha dridvrataha, and they have a great determination, dridvrataha. They are not only are they constantly chanting it, they're endeavoring with great determination. Namasyantascha mam bhaktya, they are my bhakta. Bhakta means devotee. Nitya yukta upasate. Nitya means they are constantly engaged in worshipping Krishna. Why does God want anyone to chant his glories or bow down or worship? What is this all about? Is this some narcissistic person who wants us to be able to bow down before him and have some kind of a, uh, glorify this person? Is this something, And it's a very interesting question to put, because when Krishna is saying this, he's talking about the path to enlightenment. He's talking about what it takes for us to evolve to that place. There are different ways of getting there. In the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will talk about this, where he'll speak about how we can get to the path of enlightenment through meditation and yogic practices. We can get there through a place of oneness and of non-duality, which is called Advaita. And that is most welcome. And Arjuna asks him, is that path better, or is the path of bhakti better? The path of devotion, the path of surrender, the path of love of God, which is what the Sufis talked about, that is what Christ talked about, and that's what Krishna is also talking about here. And Krishna says both paths will get you to the ultimate destination. But on the path of devotion, on the path of surrender, I help you. I personally help you and lift you up from the ocean of birth and death. 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. If you ever want to skip ahead and go read that, by all means do it. But here he's talking about the person who is highly evolved. I like that. All paths lead to Rome, says Susan. So we're all heading in the same direction. It really doesn't matter. The point is, what accelerates your path? And he's giving you the tips on how to get there. So this is not about, it is not he who needs our glorification. It is not he who needs our worship. It is not he who needs any of this. It is that when we glorify God, we have to rise above our ego. When we bow down before the Murti or the deity of God, of Krishna, we have to surrender our ego. When we worship, we have to be able to apply a heartfelt feeling into that, or it becomes mechanical. And for that, again, we have to surrender our ego. So all of these practices are designed to be able to annihilate the ego, because it is that which stands in the way. Now, why is this ego there? This ego is part of free will. So let's not misunderstand it. It's not something bad or evil or terrible. In fact, we need it to function in this world, right? It's necessary because it is our interface with the world. It is the identity that we have. And so having a healthy ego is like having a healthy car. It's not something that you need to discard or get rid of. However, it needs to be brought into alignment with our spiritual path. It needs to be brought into alignment with our soul. And the soul needs to become the driver of this vehicle, of this body, mind, organism. And from there, we're able to live our lives in alignment with the divine and be free from the delusions of this world, all the suffering that is there in the world. If anyone's got a question, please feel free anytime to raise your hand. I just want to repeat that again, and I'll be happy to take up your questions at any time. I'm just going to keep reading and talking until somebody does come up with something. So please know this is, you have the opportunity anytime you're not clear about anything or you disagree about anything. Please, I'd love to hear that as well. This is not a one-way street where I have the answers and you don't. I've been studying this for a while, good 40 years or so, but other than that, I have no other claim to fame other than I would love to hear your views. So, others who engage, Krishna continues here in chapter 9, text number 15, others who engage in sacrifice by cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. There's so much in here. Aham kritahur. So everywhere you will see the word aham or mam. These two words are used in the original Sanskrit. Aham means I am. Aham, I am. I am the ritual. So any rituals that are performed in worshiping God, any sacrifices that are made, any offerings that are made to the ancestors, any herbs, any chants, anything that you do is ultimately, Krishna saying, is me. He says, I am that. I am everything, he has said. He continues with that in chapter 9, text number 17. And I think here it becomes really clear now. I am the father of the universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge and the purifier and the syllable Om. Pita aham. Pita means father. Aham means I am. Pita aham asya jagato. Jagat means the universe. Mata dhata pitamaha. I am also the mother. I am also the father. I am also the support of the universe and the ancestor. Vedyam pavitram omkara. And I am omkar. Omkar refers to om, the syllable om, right? He says, I am that. I am the Vedas. I am the Rik, Sama, Yajur, all of the Vedas. So I am the Vedas. I am the syllable Om. I am the father and the mother of the universe. These are big claims, right? And you might say, well, how is it possible? How is it possible that one being can be all of that? And you might find yourself unable to grasp that possibility. And I'll have only one question for you. Why not? Why not? Why not? Why can that which is everything not personify itself and present itself in front of you, or in this case, in front of Arjun, and tell you that I am everything? I am all that is. Right? So, if you have any questions or doubts about that, please ask, because it's a difficult one to grasp. For those of you that have been exposed to the teachings of Advaita or non-duality, please know that they are not different from these teachings. That the teachings, that these exist simultaneously. We often tend to think either this can exist or that can exist. But this is what our old religions taught us. Either Christianity is the way, or Muslim religion is the way, or Buddhism is the way. It's not an either or thing. You can learn from all of them. They all support each other. There is not one way, they are all the way. And if you want to go all the way, then incorporate all of them. Find the harmony rather than the separation. So when I come across teachings that are from, let's say, even from psychology or from science or from Buddhism or from Advaita or Vedanta, to me, they're all leading to the same thing, and all of them are useful on the path. We do not need to, there is too much of division being created because of our minds. Because of our minds, we look at things as us versus them, my philosophy versus yours, my spirituality versus yours. There is no need for that. There is no such thing as right and wrong. That is our dualistic mind. That is our mind playing games with us. But in fact, what we need to do is harmonize and consider all possibilities. So that's where we started from. He says the souls who are not deluded, and delusion arises from this duality. And once you snap out of duality, out of us versus them, right versus wrong, this versus that, and you harmonize, you begin to see, oh my gosh, this practice can support me in that way, and that can support me in this way. And so now you begin to see how they all work together. And maybe different teachers came across at different times to be able to bring us different messages. Hmm. Then Krishna continues. You see, yes, of course, of course. Come on, Craig. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I'll tell you something, Craig. Even when somebody goes in a fearful manner, yeah, what you want to do is you want to look for, there will be pearls of wisdom in everything, in whatever anyone is saying, from the atheist to the religious person to the person who is following any path. If your eyes are out, if you have been able to see the bigger truth, then you will be able to find truth within everything. I've been practicing this for a long time. I've sat with, initially, I used to sit and argue. An argument meant that I was trying to win, I was trying to prove them wrong, and all of that stuff. And I was so, it was so frustrating to do that. It was so, there's an us, the us versus them mentality. And for years it was like that. And then there came a point where I stopped doing it. And at that point, I would look at everything they're saying and I would find those gems in what they were saying. I'd overlook the stuff that I felt was completely out there. Um, for example, if someone came up and said, God's going to send people to hell. I said, really? Okay. So he's going to send people to hell. Good. Tell me this. How many people do you think are going to go to hell? Everybody that doesn't believe in our way. Okay. How many people are there who believe in your way? Five, so many, let's say 2 billion people. Okay, so there are 7 billion people, so 5 billion people are going to hell, right? Okay. So we begin a discussion very, very carefully, looking at it, not getting, not arguing, just saying, looking at the possibilities, having them try, see if they're capable of looking at things objectively rather than emotionally. Because I know they're not willing to look at things rationally. So can they look at things a little more objectively? Maybe they're not able to do that. That's fine. So then I look at something that they're saying that I could find a point of agreement, and we'd go with that. And I'd say, okay, here's the point of it. I appreciate that point you're making. Tell me more about that. And now suddenly we're having a meaningful conversation, right? One in which we're not, no one's, there's no ego trip of trying to one up the other person, right? So if there is a room for objective discussion, I'd like to take that up first. If there isn't, then I'd rather just like to find a few areas of agreement. And I think if we can all start to consider what we can agree on, we'll do a lot better than trying to fight over the points that we disagree on, because that's what divides us. And if we are really on the same path, then can we not find a way to listen to each other, at least find some goodness in each other? What do you think of that? Yeah. 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 Hmm. See, I can agree with this. The hell is right here in my mind right now. Yeah, if the kingdom of that's a good one, right? And if hell is there, then who's maintaining hell? Like, how do they do it? Do the fires burn with wood? Do they burn with nuclear energy? How do the fires burn, by the way? Do they use gas? What kind of methodology do they use to maintain them? Anyways, I mean, I have a lot of fun with that sort of discussion, but yes, yep. And then again, ask the question: do souls burn with fire? Can a soul be burned by fire? Because if not, yeah, in Hinduism, we burn the body, and even now people cremate bodies. So if the soul cannot be burned by fire, then fire therefore has no effect on the soul. Therefore, if a soul landed up in a place where there was fire, it would just be dancing and singing around. It'd be a party place, right? It'd be like, oh, cool, let's have fun out here. There would be no burning, there would be no pain, there would be no suffering. See, these concepts were made just to frighten people and make them follow the paths of right and wrong. And that's what that was all about. So, one of the interesting things you find with Krishna is that his name actually comes from the word akarshit. Akarshit means to attract. There is no imposition that you have to do this or not do this. The entire Bhagavad Gita is about giving you options, giving you choices. You don't like this path, try this path. You don't like this path, try this path. You don't like that, try that. Right? Giving you options, letting you know where each one leads, also letting you know what is the supreme destination. Right? Because Arjun wants to know. He's not like, okay, okay, just just tell me all the different possibilities and leave it there. He says, I also want to know what is the best way to go. Tell me the choices, but also tell me what do you think is the best way to go and why, and who is the who's behind this whole thing, right? Is there a God? Is there anything behind this whole thing? And what does that mean? Because what's happened to us is, particularly in the Western world, there's been what I refer to as religious wounding. We've been wounded by by religion, by the scare tactics that they've used, and the result of that has been that we don't want to consider the idea of a personified God, right? That just becomes too daunting for us. It becomes too threatening, and we feel that if there was such a being, that there's too much power in some being like that, they would just take advantage of that. But when you see the example of Krishna, Krishna comes dancing, he comes singing, he comes playing the flute as a musician, he comes as a lover. He doesn't come with that. And yes, there is a time when there is a battle, and then he takes part in well, he doesn't actually take part in that battle either. But when there were those that came to harm him or his loved ones, yeah, then he would destroy them. But at the same time, he would give them liberation. Do you know that? Every one of the asuras, or sort of demonic creatures that would come to try to kill Krishna. And there's a series of them that did try, that was sent actually to kill him by Kans, the king. They were given liberation because they came into his orbit. They came into his orbit. They tried to try. They fought with him and wrestled with him, and so he loves it. He loved that. They're like, all right, come on, let's have a good fight here. Yeah. So there's no. This is not about goodness or being right or following the. It's about really understanding that love and devotion are not about being without conflict or without disagreement, but that those things are natural. It's okay. Disagree all you want, but come. Like Kants actually hated Krishna, wanted to kill him, sent so many people to kill him, and eventually Krishna gives him liberation because the guy was meditating on Krishna all the time. So Krishna took his soul and merged it within his body and gave him mukti, liberation from birth and death, from the entire cycle of the same thing that was done by great yogis, right? That took them ages to get to that point. Kans and his demon friends who tried to kill Krishna were all given mukti, were all given liberation. In chapter 9, text number 18, Krishna continues, I am the goal, Gatir Bharata Prabhu Sakshi. I am the Sakshi. Sakshi is the witness. I am the witness, right? I am the goal. I am the Gatir, the Gati, the destination, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. Nivas Sharanam Suhrit Pratavah Pralaya Sthanam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. So, I am the goal. Goal means the goal of human life, the goal of all activity, the goal of everything. He says, I am the goal. I am the sustainer. I sustain the entire universe. I am the master. I am the witness. I am the abode. I am the refuge. And I am the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place and the eternal seed. I give heat and I withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality and I am also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. Those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly. Purified of sinful reactions or karma, they take birth on the pious heavenly planets of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights. When they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure. So, by the way, these heavenly planets that he's talking about are also part of the material world. They are just the higher planets where there is less suffering and longer lifetime and more pleasure. We are in the middle planet, the Earth. This is in the middle planetary systems. And then you have the lower planetary systems where there is greater suffering and more hellish environments. But hellish would be like, okay, if you went to the Sahara Desert, that would be like a hellish environment. It's really, really hot out there and it's really miserable to be there. And you go up even to the very cold places, the Arctic regions of the Earth, that would also be very hellish. But then you have places like San Diego, which are just like neither too hot nor too cold, just perfect. And that's the earthly realm. It's not got too much suffering and it's got not got too much pleasure. It's in between. So he's saying here that even those who go to the most heavenly planets where they enjoy great, immense sensual pleasures, right? When they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sensual pleasure and the results of their pious deeds, their good karma are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet, the earth, again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. So he's saying whether you go to the highest planets in the universe, yes, Susan, you're right, Bhuloka. Bhuloka is this earth, right? Yes. And that is Svarga. Svarga is the heavenly planets. So whether you go to the highest planets in the universe or the lowest planets, all of them are places of suffering wherein repeated birth and death take place. But then he goes on to add, but one who returns to my abode never comes back to this place, to this temporary and miserable world. In chapter 9, text number 22, but those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. Let me read that again. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So, why does one need a form of God to worship? Because it actually assists you, because we are human beings. We live in a world of form, right? We do not live in a formless world. We have form. When we fall in love with someone, that someone has a form. Whether that someone is our pet or whether that someone is our beloved, they have a form. It's very hard for us to fall in love with a formless person or a formless being. Have you ever fallen in love with someone you knew nothing about? But strangely enough, the Abrahamic religions tell you to love God. They tell you to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul. But they don't tell you what this God looks like or does, what this God's qualities are, right? They do not tell you anything about it. So how do you fall in love with someone who you know nothing about? Like I tell you, there's this really amazing person, and you would just fall in love with this person. The first thing you'd want to know is, well, tell me about this person, right? What are they like? You might want to see a picture of the person. You might want to know something about their qualities. You might want to know something about their activities. And that's how you fall in love with someone. Well, at least the beginning of it. Now you want to get to know this person. And as you get to know the person and you hang out with them, that's where you fall in love. So the same thing happens here. 20. Yes. So very, very doable that you can do that, because in fact, love is not about a being. It is equally an energy and equally a being. So love can manifest as a being for you to fall in love with, but there is also that internal awakening that happens where you experience that within yourself and where you begin to experience that everywhere, right? You begin to experience the energy of love. You begin to experience the energy of the divine as being in you and all around you. And you fall in love with everything and everyone. And that is as equally true as well. Okay? But for most people, that path is difficult. It's not easy. Give them something that they can look at, give them something that they can worship, give them something that will engage their senses, and it's a lot easier. So, either way, the point is to get to that place. I think they do. Yes. If you'll see Ramakrishna, for example, Ramakrishna Paramhams, he used to worship, but he was also great, and he was in great ecstasy, but he was also a great meditator. If you look at Vivekananda, I don't know if Vivekananda ever had a deity that he worshipped, but many of them do. I mean, I look at even Sadhguru today. Sadhguru's got his Shiva, right? And he is so. I mean, on one hand, I thought this man's a yogi, right? And he's completely on this path of yogic path. But on the other hand, he's a great worshiper of Shiva. And he's got his dhyana lingam and he's got all this stuff that he worships. So the point is, he needs a form and he likes to have some kind of being that he can look up to. You see how this goes. You find that even the yogis will tend towards some kind of form. Because we are embodied beings, it's very difficult for us to just simply stay with energy. I don't see any reason why you can't have both. I've been a lover of Krishna from a very young age, and yet I've learned how to feel that love with no form at all, within myself, all around me. So I know that both things are simultaneously possible. That one doesn't. In fact, in the amongst the acharyas, the teachers of bhakti, they talk about this. They say the beginner sees God as only being in the sees Krishna as only being in the temple. That's just the beginning. That's the beginner stage. Because as you come to the next stage, this is the beginner is the Kanishta Adhikari, the next stage is the Madhyam Adhikari, the middle stage. And that is where you begin to see that God is in everyone and everywhere. Right? So it's not just limited to a temple, but is in everything and in everyone. And then you come to the next stage where you develop this deep sense of nothingness, of this place of deep humility, where you feel that everyone else is close to God and I am this insignificant being. I have no worth, no value, nothing. Now, this appears to be very daunting for the ego, because the ego, I mean, as a therapist, I have so many people come to me, and when they come, when we're working through their stuff, one of the bottom line things that most people come up with is this feeling of worthlessness. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And the fact of the matter is, this is true. We are not worthy. We are not good enough. Right? Our ego is wanting to be good enough. Our ego is wanting to be worthy, is wanting to be something, to be significant, to matter. But we don't matter. That's the truth. The truth is we are insignificant. We're a tiny little speck in the universe. We are nothing. And that same thing, that is the annihilation of the ego. That is the devastation that Rumi talks about. That is when the yogi talks about reaching that place of nothingness, that shunya, that zero, that place of emptiness. It's the same thing. The same thing. I would say the entire spirituality of India comes down to one number, and that number is zero. It all comes down to zero. How do you arrive at zero? I'll tell you the mathematical formula. 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 is equal to 0. What does this mean? It means that when you can take both sides of duality and bring them together, when you can see right in wrong and wrong in right, and when neither right nor wrong matter and none of them exist, neither male nor female, neither young nor old, neither rich nor poor, none of that matters to you. When you can see, when you actually rise beyond that. And to rise, and many people think to rise beyond that is some very complex thing to do. It's not. To rise beyond that simply means this, that in whatever you see the opposite as well. And in whatever opposite you see the opposite of that now. Until eventually your mind is so befuddled, it cannot go anywhere. It gets confused. It cannot go anywhere. That's where you want to go. That's the opening. That's where when you bring two opposites together in your mind, okay? I say to my mind, I am both brilliant and I am a fool. Now my mind doesn't know which one is which. Am I a brilliant or am I a fool? What is it? What is the reality? My mind wants to know. Tell me once and for all who the hell you are. Are you brilliant or are you a fool? I said, no, I am both brilliant and a fool at the same time. Now my mind goes like, what the hell are you talking about? It can't pin me down now. It cannot label me because I have gone beyond the label. I have owned my foolishness and I have owned my brilliance, and I have realized that I am neither fool nor brilliant. You see, now I have gone beyond the mind. I have gone out of the mind. So 1 plus 1 minus 1, when you bring them together, you enter into 0. What is zero? Zero is the place that is undefined. It has no value. It is nothing. When you realize that you are nothing, right, you become empty. And into that emptiness, the divine comes pouring in. That is the place where you've gone beyond your mind and you've allowed for the divine to come in. Of course, you have to be welcoming of that possibility. If you panic at that moment, right? If you panic at that moment, as many people do, as most people do, because they're uninformed, they don't know what they're doing. When you are faced with your own insignificance, when you're faced with your, let's say you've lost everything and things didn't work out for you, whether that's a relationship or that's your business or it's your work, right? When you come to that place of realizing that I'm a failure, I've lost everything, we become depressed, we become devastated, and some people even take their lives. But if you realize, oh, I finally touched the truth of who I am, what a wonderful moment. What a wonderful moment. When Kabir's house was burning, he said, Bhala hua meri matki phuti. I'm so glad. He quoted a line from the gopis when Krishna would break their pots that they would carry on their head, clay pots. He would throw a stone and break the pot. It was just part of his little leela that he was doing, his pastimes. When the pot would break, they could no longer go to the river to get the water which they needed to bring home. So he says, I'm so glad that my pot that I was carrying, this load that I was carrying on my head, has now broken. Right? I no longer need to go to the river to get water. In other words, I no longer need to bother about this house that I needed to worry about and how to support myself and all of that stuff. His point was that when he lost everything, it was the moment of opening to receive the blessings and surrender of the divine. That is where the magic happens. So sometimes we go there consciously, and sometimes we get a kick in the butt to get there. We get to choose, which one you want to see happen. So I don't know if that answered your question, Craig. Or did I get lost? I'm so sorry. I think I lost track too. But the point of zero, I think, was the point that I was making, is that in zero lies infinity. In our nothingness lies everything. In other words, what that is like an empty cup. Into that empty cup, infinity can come within that. The entire universe or God can enter within you and bless you. But as long as you think you are something, as long as you think you have, you got your plans, you got your goals, you got your stuff that you want to do and you want to become, you're full of yourself, right? I've had to face this. I've had to face this gradual smashing of the ego again and again and again as I come up with my own desires and my own plans. And then sometimes the ego is sneaky. Oh no, I'll do this. I'll write this book and I'll become something. And people will look up at me and think, oh, what a great guy he is. And my ego is like, boom, nothing doing. That will not happen. We will not let that happen. So the ego must be smashed. And when it is smashed, we come to humility. And when we come to humility, then we understand, okay, I'm just a small little punk on this planet, a tiny little cog in the wheel, trying to think, oh, I'm going to be remembered after for my great contribution. I'm going to make a difference in this planet. Nonsense. Utter nonsense. You could, Christ came, Krishna came, Buddha came. What difference did they make? The world still went its merry way, and today we have nuclear weapons and we have pollution and we have all kinds of invasive technologies. Yeah. And the predictions are we may not last another 100 years. I don't know. That not predictions by religion, but predictions by science are that we've created such a mess out here that with climate change the way it is, we may not last another 100 years. We certainly, at the rate of our population growth, we're not going to last. So this is where we've come, despite the greatest of the great being here. And if I think I'm going to make a difference, oh la la, not at all. What I can do is share with you what I've learned along the way. And if that means anything to you or to anyone else, wonderful. And if it doesn't, I'll talk into the wind. Right? Because I can't change anyone. I can't make anyone do anything. I mean, even God doesn't force anyone to do anything. Everyone's been given free will. Do what you wish. But if you wish to know, then there is a path and there is a way. And what I find in bhakti is a sweetness, is something that is magnetic, that captures your heart, right? That pulls you in, that makes you, that is unforgettable. What I find is that when you develop an attraction, when you allow Krishna into your heart, a certain attraction occurs, a certain attachment occurs. And the path towards your spiritual growth becomes sweeter and more, I don't know, more. There's an ecstasy to it. There's a beauty to it. There's also pain to it. Just like falling in love, there's pain in it and there's pleasure in it. There's ups and there's downs. There's all of that. But there is this knowing that I'm not alone. I'm not on this journey by myself. I have Krishna by my side, and he's going to be with me through it all. So Krishna says, if you are a student of Vedanta, Vedaischa sarver aham eva vedya. I am the origin of the Vedas, and by all the Vedas am I to be known. So ultimately, it is getting to know the Supreme Being. And that Supreme Being, according to the Bhagavad Gita, is Krishna himself. So he's saying here, those who worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. I carry what they lack. So in other words, what I found is this, that over the years, as I learned to really truly listen to my inner voice, to surrender and allow him to write through me and speak through me and work through me, the changes that happened within me were not of my doing. I didn't sit and meditate for hours and hours a day. I didn't do some great austerities. I didn't fast. I didn't do any of the stuff that most people do. All of it was what we call in Sanskrit kripa, or mercy, or grace. And by that grace, by that mercy, so much transformation began to happen from the inside. So, as I say, it is a way to get there, and you can certainly get there any other way. However you get there, as Rumi says, there is a field beyond right and wrong. I'll meet you there, right? So what he's talking about is there is a state of consciousness, there is a state of being beyond the dualities of right and wrong. I'll meet you there. So it really doesn't matter how you get there. Come, join me. Let's all get there and come into that place. And I'm not saying I'm there all the time, but I know what it's like to be there. And I can bring you the news that says it's possible. And I have no ambitions of, or I have no idea of saying that I'm always there. No. But I know how to touch that place. Consciously, anytime. And I think that is attainable for all of us. As I said to you today, one simple formula, keep this in mind today. +1 - 1 = 0. Whatever you think and its opposite are simultaneously true. When you realize that neither this nor that are actually true, right? When the two collapse, when whatever ideas you have collapse, and your mind becomes empty, free from those ideas, you're now able to see things clearly. You will have no more biases. You will now have clarity, right? Think of the mud in a pool of water. If there's mud floating around in it, when that mud settles down, then you have clarity. In the same way, when your mind is free from any thought, from any opinion, like today's world, everyone's so hung up on opinions. Opinion is the lowest level of intelligence. I don't know if anyone knows this. Opinion is the lowest level of intelligence. Just having an opinion doesn't make you smart. And most people around these days think that being smart is about having an opinion. Anyways, I've talked a lot. Tell me if there's any questions you'll have. Anybody else would like to share anything? Um, Susan, you've put in some lovely things in the text. If you have something you'd like to say, please come on the camera and share that. Um, if not, okay. Gabriel, is there anything you'd like to share? Who else is here? Let's see. Charlene, Milan. Anybody like to come forth with anything? Any observations? Any questions? Any takeaways? Things that you will remember from this conversation? All right. Well, I'll see you guys next week then. See you Tuesday, 7 o'clock, same time. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Take care. You're welcome. Thanks. Bye.